Microphone. Dr. Saroj Kaul. Can you hear me, madam? Hello? Madam, can you just speak to her so that she can open her audio?
Saroj ma'am, your system is on mute. If you could kindly unmute yourself.
Oh, mine is mute?
No, not yours, Professor.
Yeah, madam's is on mute.
On mute. I don't have the number. I've called her. I don't have a phone number. Just one sec. It will be there in the group. I'll just call.
Shall I ask the recording to stop, sir? It's already been started.
Yeah, you could
Started. Okay. Fine, no problem, no problem.
So we can start, sir. We can connect with Dr. Chur afterwards. Sir, we can start now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. We have come to the third day, and what we have today is a very interesting session: contract management, administration, and compliance. I have with me my co-panelist, Captain Yogesh Kundra, who is the president of GATI as well. He is a veteran in the field of logistics and transportation. To be precise, more than 40 years. He has been the general manager for Reliance Logistics, India Cements, and goes on and on. And I have also along with me the panelist in the first session, Shyam Ramurthy. He will be the observer. Okay, so we're going to have a wonderful session. So let me all welcome you to the session.
Thank you, sir.
So what we are going to see is what are the objectives and components of the contracting process? What are the results of neglected contract management? What are the roles and responsibilities of the owner, contract officer, contract administrator, contract monitor? What is the function of management? What is the function of the contract management team, and how can their success be measured? Okay, then what are the guiding principles of conflict resolution? And how can you identify contract risk? Okay, and then we are going to have the most entertaining and informative session. As a part of our experiential learning lessons, we are going to have the following: sample of ambiguous and unambiguous statements. What is the significance of ethics and contract administration? Then what are the tips for improving contract management, administration, and compliance? Okay, right. So let's start for the day with objectives of contracting processes. What is the objectives? Let's have a look at it. To obtain goods and services within the budgeted cost in accordance with the project schedule and the contract performance requirements or specifications. So you got to get goods and services within the budgeted cost. That's the most important part, budgeted cost, as per the project schedule and the contract performance, requirements of the contract performance and specifications. So these are the objectives of the contracting process. Now, let's see what are the contracting processes. There are various processes involved, starting with procurement planning, then solicitation planning, solicitation, source selection, contract administration, contract closeout, and termination. And we are going to see each one briefly. Let's see what is contracting process? This is fairly simple and very well explained. So let's look at contract planning. This is always the starting point. Planning is always the starting point. What are we planning? Determining what to procure and when. What to procure and when. Then solicitation planning. Documenting product requirements and identifying potential sources. Okay. Now sourcing comes here. See, sourcing is a very important concept now. Okay. And because of the information technology, the advancement in information technology, there are more and more suppliers are coming into the market. So constantly there has to be sourcing research. There's a new discipline which has emerged. It's called sourcing research. So constantly you have to keep on doing research to see who are the new suppliers who are coming into the market, what are their products, okay, and then check it with your technical team to see whether they are compatible. Then comes solicitation. Develop and issue invitation for bids or request for proposal. Okay, right. This is what we saw in the first session where we were talking about contract charter. And we also had a look at RFP as well as RFQ. Then source selection. Award solicitation in accordance with award clause. Then comes contract administration. Manage the contractual relationship with the contractor. Manage the contractual relationship with the contractor. It's a very important aspect. We will see more of it as we go along in the next few days. Then contract closeout and termination. And in the last day, on day 6, we are going to have a dispute resolution in contract management with a case study, very interesting case study on the day 6. Then more and more items will be explained when you end a project. Completion and settlement of the contract, including resolution of any open item. Right, next, this is an interesting part. Results of neglected contract management. Okay. This is to be seen only and not to be practiced. Okay. End user frustration because of poor contract performance in timeliness and quality. See, this is not at all tolerable. Why it has happened? What is the reason for it? The cause and effect analysis, all this has to be looked into. Okay. We cannot take it for granted. Why it has happened? Okay, and it has to be eradicated then and there itself. Then lack of contractor accountability. This is not at all tolerable. Why has it happened? What is the reason? Has the contractor lost interest in the project? All this has to be again looked into with Microsoft lens to analyze what went wrong for the contractor. Now we have seen yesterday performance-based contract, and you can see how that sort of contract can be implemented. When you have a performance-based contract, such things will not happen from the contractor's side because his performance is directly proportionate to the output and the deliverables and the performance. He is totally responsible. So there cannot be any lack of interest from the contractor. Then agency acceptance of poor quality. Okay. Now, if this is to happen, there must be something behind it. Okay. Some money transaction must have happened. Okay. It's not right to accuse anybody, but these are all the realities. Okay. Now, as I go along, I will explain the new phenomena which has taken place in the field of procurement. Procurement managers all around the world have a bad reputation because They are all being termed as they will fall for money. Okay, this was the old norm. Now it cannot happen because things have changed dramatically in the organization because these are all managed by self-managed teams. The procurement manager alone cannot make a decision. Decision is made by a committee wherein the finance manager, the HR manager, the legal, the operation, everybody is in the committee and the decision is taken by the committee and not by a single individual. So the chances of getting the procurement manager corrupted is being nullified. His role becomes much lower than what it was before. Increased cost, this is a normal thing. Under and overpayment to a contractor. Okay, now we saw yesterday the types of contracts. Okay, when it's a fixed contract given by as requested by the buyer and given by the supplier and fixed term contract, this is where these things can happen. The cost of operation has gone up. For example, in the construction field, the cost of cement, the cost of rebars have gone up. Okay, but still they are stuck with the contract because it's a fixed term contract. And I had the opportunity to teach one engineer in Dubai who was facing this situation. And he told me frankly, sir, it's not good for me to tell you, but what happens is knowingly or unknowingly, we are bound to reduce the quality of the material what we are using in order to circumvent the increase in cost. These are things what happens in reality. Okay, then under or overpayment to a contract. Now, under and overpayment to a contract, from my experience, what I have learned is to never to accept from an organization payment on account. If you accept payment on account, you can end up into this sort of situation. Always payments have to be made against an invoice, not on account payment. Then only you can get into this sort of situation. Right, now let's look at a contract management team. How does it look like? Okay, there are contract administrators and contract monitors, and we will see very soon the role of each of these people. Then there is contract officer and then end user or contract owner. So they are all part and parcel of the contract management team. Right, now let's look at the responsibilities and the roles of the contract owner of the contract. Overall responsibility for meeting project and contract objectives. He is totally responsible for the cost as long as it is budgeted and it is as per the contractual terms. The schedule has to be kept. There cannot be unless there is a force measure. Okay, the schedule has to be kept going. Then performance. Performance, especially in a project, is being evaluated very much as per project contract management norms. Right, now let's look at the roles and responsibilities of contract officer. Is the only one authorized to make binding changes and modifications to a contract, including exercising contract renewal options. See, he's the most powerful person. Okay, he's a contract officer. Manages the contractual relationship with the contractor in accordance with the contract specifications, scope of work, and performance requirements. So the contract officer is the topmost person with ample authority and to make binding changes and modification to the contract, including exercising contract renewal options. Again, these are all done by mutual consent. He's not going to do something on his own. It will be discussed openly and then agreed upon, and then he will implement it. Right, this is a contract administrator. What are his functions? He would review the contract award package upon receipt, okay, examine it properly, understand it, okay, note down all the important aspects, what are the parameters, what are the milestones to be achieved. All this has to be looked in and by the contract administrator. He has to retain a file copy, okay, of the contract. Then he has to distribute to the contract monitor. Then he has to coordinate delivery of goods and services in accordance with the contract. Okay, and lastly, verify receipt and condition of goods and services immediately. Verify receipt and condition of goods and services immediately. Okay, so you can see the contract administrator has enormous responsibility. Okay, he's the one who has to run the show. So his eyes and ears have to be everywhere, and he has to be organized, set the operating standards and ensure they are working according to these standards. Now let's look at the contract monitor. Okay, the contract monitor understands specific tasks of contract requirements. Okay, if he does not understand, if he has got any clarification, he will go back, he has to go back and get it clarified. Okay, there cannot be any room for any ambiguity. He has to have a clear-cut knowledge as to what are the tasks and responsibilities he is entrusted with. Then review contract award package and receive clear direction from the contract administrator. Okay, even if the contract administrator does not provide it, yes, it's up to the contract monitor to get it from the contract administrator so that there is no ambiguities and everybody speaks the same language. Schedule the delivery of goods and performance of the services with the contractor. Timely inspection of the condition of goods received and quality of work performed. See, these are things which has to happen on a continuous basis. Okay, as the Japanese say, it's a kaizen, continuous process evaluation as well as development. If there is any fault, if there is any mistake, it has to be pointed out and it has to be rectified as well. Document and report the contractor's failure to the contract administrator. See, if there is a failure, yes, it has to be reported, and how and what action he has taken to correct it. Okay, and lastly, provide input for future solicitation. So this is the contract monitor. Okay, so here you can see, after having seen the contract administrator as well as contract monitor, how well these things are set up, organized. Now, let's say before we start, okay, a contract, what are these things which has to be set up? What are the duties? Okay, review designation letters, sign and return to contract officer, identify contract requirements. See, when it comes to contract requirements, these things have to be given in black and white in detail, and there has to be meetings wherein these things should be clarified. Now, in most of the projects, there is everyday meeting is there. Okay, the purpose is to evaluate what has transpired on the previous day, and at the same time to chalk out what is new for the day. Okay, and when you evaluate the previous day, what are the items, how the job has been carried out, was it according to the schedule, and if there is a delay, that delay has to be explained. What is the reason for the delay? So there is a continuous evaluation. There's a continuous process as to how and where you stand as far as the project is concerned, and everything has to be logged down. Right, identify and consult with contract team managers. That's what I was just talking about. Okay, this is a Japanese concept which has got into our Indian system as well, and especially in the project management scenario. Communicate roles and responsibilities, which has already been done, but again, it's a reinforcement so that everybody understands their responsibilities. Conduct implementation meeting. So this is where the daily meeting, in addition to that, separate groups, okay, like the focus groups, okay, has to be established, wherein the roles and responsibilities, the work is explained thoroughly, what are the problems they're encountering, all this has to be seen in the implementation meetings. Coordinate other startup activities as needed, okay? Now, the contract manager may have other activities going on at the same time in the same project, okay? And that also has to be coordinated and supervised as well. Create a file or binder to retain all contract information, okay? Documentation is very important. Nowadays, with the help of IT, yes, these things are much easier now because most of the people are using data management system. Conduct implementation meeting. Coordinate other startup activities as needed. Okay, I think it's a repetition. Create and file binder, retain all contract information. I think these two are being repeated. Sorry for it. Right. Now, let's look at what are the essential ingredients of a team. A successful team. Effective communication. I think that goes without saying. How important it is to have effective communication upward as well as downward. Okay, that's number one. Defined project expectations. Okay, everybody in the team should know what are the roles and responsibilities of each one and the parameters and the milestones to be achieved at any given point of time. Okay, and these things have to be reinforced over a period of time in the meetings. Then dedication from contract management team. Okay, now dedication is very easy to say, but this is something which you got to get it from the people. Okay, this is all depends on the team members as well as from the top. Okay, it is the contract manager is the one who has to ensure that, okay, its team is a very cohesive team. They work together for a common objective. So everybody is on the same page. Accountability of all team members. See, accountability is a word which has got different connotations as well. If you are accountable, okay, the word is empower. Okay, if you are empowered, you are responsible as well for what you have to do. Okay, you are responsible for what you are entrusted with. You are empowered to act as a team. You've got team members and you are the head of the team. So you have to work according to the norms of the team. Okay, now everybody knows very well that the team concept, how efficient the team concept has spread all around the world now. Okay, the team members have to be multi-skilled. If not, you have to make sure that they are multi-skilled. Okay, and they are empowered. They have been empowered to act, to make decisions so that the performance is carried out. There is no excuse that somebody has not come on leave, is on leave or sick. As a team member, somebody has to take responsibilities and move on. Okay, that's why the team members have to be multi-skilled. Right, these are the measurements. Okay, these are measurements of success. Solicitations effectively convey requirements. See, when you solicit contractors, okay, you will be making them known what is expected from them. What are the expectations of the organization as well as and for the project. Only people who are qualified and people who have got the capabilities will be or should be selected. Early involvement to resolve contract issues. See, this is vital when you're working in a project environment. You should not allow things to happen. Wherever there is a dispute, you have to make sure the dispute is resolved then and there itself. Otherwise, it can boomerang on the very completion of the project. No merit to protest and claims received. No merit to protest and claims received. See, claims is something which I do talk about and which I handle in other modules. How to handle claims, how to file claims, these are all very important aspects. Okay. Now, when claims happen, number one, it has to be documented. Okay, the first thing is whenever there is a claim, put it in black and white to the person concerned. Okay, for example, it could be a claim in the airport. You have not received what is stated in the airway bill. Out of the 12 pieces, only 10 have landed. So there is a short shipment. So immediately, and as per the law, within 14 days of the cargo arrival, you got to put in your claim notification to the airline with a copy to the insurance company. Lots of people don't know this. There is a time limit within 14 days. It's very important. Okay, so likewise, claims have to be submitted. Now, as intermediaries, okay, we are totally responsible to file the claims at the appropriate time with the appropriate people and make sure our principals get the benefit of when a settlement happens. Okay, now this is where, and if you do not put the claim when it happens to the concerned principal, okay, the subrogation rights of the principal is lost. Please understand, this is a very important aspect in the claims. Subrogation rights, we cannot subjugate the subrogation rights of the principal. Okay, contractor performance tracked through proper documentation. Like what I was just talking about, the documentation is the most important part in a team. When you work in a team, okay, and for the success of the team, everything has to be documented. Now, expenditure within the budget. Okay, this is a vital aspect wherein the expenses have to be monitored thoroughly. Right, this is the guiding principles of conflict resolution. Conflicts can happen at any time. We are not superhumans, okay? But what is essential is there has to be a system, there has to be a procedure wherein such conflicts should be resolved in a proper and professional manner. Okay, think before reacting. That means don't get emotionally carried away whenever there is an issue. Okay, we are all serious people, mature people, talk to each other, sit across the table and try to settle it amicably. Listen actively. See, it's a trait. God has given us only one mouth and he has given 2 ears. So listen carefully. See what the other man has to say. Assure a fair process. Okay, which we talked about it yesterday very much. Sorry, on the first day. Okay, fair process. Even in a court of law, that is what the judge would look into. Okay, have you carried out the due process? Okay, is it fair? These are all aspects which the court would look into. Right, accept responsibility. Okay, if a problem has happened because of the owner, okay, or by a government authority or whatever it is, but outside the scope of the work of the contractor, accept it. Okay, don't hesitate, accept it. Okay, And there's no point of going for a dispute on that account. Accept it. Use direct communication, always in writing. No verbal communication. It has to be done in writing. Then look for interest. Okay, then focus on the future. Okay, you are involved in a contract. So you have a long way to go. So if there are minor issues coming up or conflicts which have come on the way, yes, think of that, okay, you want to work with the concerned party in the future. So try to have an amicable solution to it. Okay, options for mutual gain. Okay, so this is again, mutual gain is something which you have to forfeit. You have to look at the overall benefit of the organization as well as the project on hand. Identifying contract risk. Eliminate the possibility of differing interpretation of intent of contract. Okay, in the beginning itself, this is to be conveyed, and if anybody has got any clarification, there has to be, or an open debate, and so that everybody can understand each other as to what is the expectation, what are the assumptions in which the whole contract is based on. And if anybody has got any ambiguous feeling as to what the intent is, it should be clarified and everybody has to be on the same page. Avoid using ambiguous phrases. See, this is a very important aspect, and also a very important thing to the participants. What I would like to say is, your MBA graduates, working executives, use terminology which are professionally acceptable. Okay, now I can just give an example. It happened in UK. Two friends were working in two different companies, but both are in the sales. Both were bidding for a job, and one lost the contract. So the other person went back to his office. In his anger, he wrote a very strongly worded email to his friend, accusing him that through undercutting, through other unfair means, they have achieved the contract. It was a very open accusation. Okay, when the friend received the email, this was shown to his management, and the management took it very seriously, as if it has emanated from the company. See, and then finally they went to the court. It was a disaster for the other company, and they were punished very heavily and with a penalty. See, this is what happens. In an anger, you can do a lot of things. Okay, that is why now most of the companies have incorporated in their firewalls these sort of words, whereby such emails, if generated by anybody, will not go out of the organization. It will remain. Okay, so it's very essential. One has to react to things in a fair and equitable manner, not emotionally, in an emotional manner. Types of contract risk: proposal, surety, liability. Okay, surety and all, we will be seeing it more tomorrow. Liability is something which you have to understand. Okay, whose liability is it? Okay, now we will, I don't want to get into it now because tomorrow we have a session on risk management, so we will be talking about liability and all more in detail. Okay, contractual and then scheduling. So identifying the contract risk. Okay, performance and price. Okay, so I'm not getting more into contract risk, which we will be covering tomorrow. Right, so now we have the experiential learning lessons. I think I'm right on time. Can I invite my panelist, Captain Yogesh Kundra, who is the president of Gati Intellect, a man almost 40 years from the logistics and transportation industry. He is our panelist. And then we have our observer, who was the panelist in the first session, Shyam Ramamurthy. Okay. Welcome to the session.
Thank you,
Yogesh,
sir. Good
are you
afternoon,
there?
everyone.
Right. Okay, let's move.
Thank you.
Right. Now, this is what we are going to see. Okay, it's going to be a group discussion led by our panelists. Okay, first, what we are going to see is a review of the statement of work as shown in the contract and pointed out the erroneous statements. Okay, so you will have to do some job. Please, participants, you will have to speak up. Otherwise, our job will not function. Okay, please take out the best from us because we are all very experienced people. So it's up to you to get the best out of us. Okay, we will talk about the second and third as we go along. So let's concentrate on the first one. Let me read again. We are going to show you the statement of work as shown in the contract and point out the erroneous statements. Okay, here to Yogesh, this is back to you.
Yeah. Gentlemen, if you read the screen,
Louder, a little more louder.
am I audible to everyone?
Yeah. Yes, you are, Yogesh.
Yeah, okay. We see on the screen certain phrases which are mentioned in the contract. Now, while Professor Matthews was going through the entire presentation on the contract, I was also going back to my old experiences of various situations and contracts where I have been a party of giving a contract and am also in a situation where I have participated in a contract. So on the both sides, the statement of the scope of work has to be very accurately defined. If it is not defined, we will end up into complications and also end up in failure of contract. And some of the statements which are mentioned here are very common. It says the repair to be warranted for a minimum of 12 months. Now, what would anyone mean in that? They have not specified the kind of repair, what activities have to be done on the repairs. It just mentioned very open, vague, and it can always be contested. The tailor to be furnished to conforms to the latest specifications. Now if the cargo specifications are not given and the suitable equipment to transport the cargo or handle the cargo is not given, it is very vague, and it will result into wrongly understanding by the vendor who has participated or taken the contract, and it will end up in not achieving the desired results. Equipment to be delivered to the main headquarters. Now, it's not very clear the exact location. Now, if the contract involves transportation and erection, to the specifications of erection, how it has to be positioned and how it has to be delivered at site is very important. So those things are is not clear, very ambiguous given in the statement, which will certainly result into contract not being getting closed correctly or not being delivered correctly. Any exceptions or to listed in a letter attached to this bid, very vague. And exceptions, normally whenever there is a tender or large tender and many people are participating, the companies normally invite pre-tender meeting that the companies can ask for specific clarifications. So all exceptions can get clarified. If it is not clarified and kept like this, it will certainly end up into a conflict and will also end up in not completion of the work. All repairs shall be warranted for a minimum of 12 months from date of repair is accepted by the department. Again, very unclear statement. What repair, what equipment to be repaired, it is not clear. So it has to be very clearly specified in the contract or terms of contract, so that the vendor who is executing correctly understands does not interpret it wrongly, which will not achieve the objective of the contract for which it has been released. Trailer must conform to section 110, 210 edition of the National Equipment Motor Company publication and later specifications. Now, this is again a very vague thing. The term should specify all details on the specifications required, and not that it should be left to some document to be read, which can be wrongly interpreted by the vendor on that. Equipment must be delivered to the main headquarters. That's fine. There can be no exceptions. This is a mandatory requirement. Again, a very vague statement, because exceptions have to be defined whenever there is a tender. Otherwise, it will end up into a conflict, a dispute. Can you go to the next slide, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Yogesh. Now, this is the ethics part. Can I request Shyam to talk about ethics? Shyam, are you there? Shyam, are you there?
I'm here, Professor. I'm sorry, I did not realize that I had muted myself.
Right, please go ahead.
So ethics is one of the key criteria in any organization and in any function. Like Professor Matthews mentioned right at the beginning, the purchasing or the buying or the procurement sections or the people there, typically they, people look at them with a little suspicion, primarily because they have a big budget. They feel other people in the organization or across organizations feel that they may or they are in a position to curry favors so that they can get certain jobs done. So if you look at some examples that you see, immediate family members, what we typically call as nepotism, spouse, children, parents, etc., living in the same household as the employee does. Yeah. Now, what an example that comes to mind quickly, if I can say, is a contract being awarded to a person who is who coaches the employees' children on a certain sporting game or facility. This could cut both ways. Predominantly, one of them could be that the person may be qualified, but is not qualified in all aspects. The person has been awarded that contract primarily because he or she is in a position where they are able to influence their precondition to the person working in an organization. So this is something that one would need to look at also. You can have, either a contract or an order or certain services being awarded to people within your own family circle. Similarly, you have something on the official responsibilities that are there. So because you have been bestowed the responsibility by the organization, by the head of the organization to carry out certain tasks, you feel that you are in a position to cut across various, what does one say, steps or parameters while awarding a contract, which is basically called sort of dereliction of duty. You're not being duly diligent, and you are cutting through the layers of processing an order and overstepping your responsibility in the official nature. So this is another thing that one needs to be very, very careful about. When one talks of procurement transactions, goods, services, or products that one wishes to purchase or an organization wants to buy, one needs to ensure that the typical standard operating process laid down by the organization is followed in letter and spirit. There can be no shortcuts. There can be no favoritism that is there only because he or she is a very close buddy who has helped you in a certain period of time, and therefore you feel obligated to reciprocate that. So three areas that one looks at, which come immediately to mind, which Professor Matthews has projected, which one may want to be cognizant of: immediate family members, being in a responsible position and carrying out the duties, so being due diligent, and the transactions that you do need to be followed in letter and spirit to ensure that ethics are clearly above board in every single step of the way when you transact any operation within an organization.
Thank you, Shyam. So let's see a simple case study. Shyam, you want to have a look at the same case study?
Absolutely. So if you look at this case study, there is a contract administrator of doing landscaping who has a child, a daughter here, who is on the youth softball team. Yeah. The coach is the contractor who has been awarded this landscaping contract. The contract administrator now goes about collecting donations to raise money for the entire team, to go and have a good time in Disney World. What does the contractor do here, if you look at it? The contractor, because he or she wants to curry favor to get into the landscaping contract, maybe for the next 6 months or for a year or for a longer period of time, donates a substantial amount of money to the softball team so that an obligation, there is a reciprocity that can come inside the obligation that the administrator will have to facilitate in the future. This, in my opinion, is a clear violation of ethics.
Thank you, Shyam. So now let's get into the next level of discussion, the second level with Captain Yogesh. What we are going to discuss is review the visuals and point out the discrepancies and analyze the cause and effect. So participants, please, we want you to interact and give your opinion so that the best can be taken out from a panelist like an experienced panelist like Captain Yogesh Kundra. Over to you, Yogesh.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, we see a picture on the slide. It basically talks about a 16-ton tilt bed trailer. Now, I'm just giving a preamble that there is a company which probably is manufacturing specialized equipment which needs special transportation arrangements, and the context to that is that it needs a special loading arrangements, and also it also needs to adhere to certain safety norms. Now, the context to our discussion is whether the terms of reference in the contract has been clearly specified so that the vendor who is awarded the contract is able to execute the contract and deliver the material or the product safely from its loading point to the destination point. Now, this particular slide shows a tilting arrangement where the equipment can roll over and go onto the trailer. Now, if you look at the specification, it is not specifying the process of loading to be taken place. It is not specifying what are the safety parameters to be adhered when the product has to be loaded onto the trailer. With the result, the vendor who will be undertaking the transportation may not follow the norms of the loading or transportation or lashing the product before it goes for transportation, and may compromise on the safety. So the observation here is that what kind of trailer is required for loading, that the specification has not been clearly defined. Can you go to the next slide, sir?
Yeah.
Now, this slide shows that the trailer is loaded with 30,486 tons of product onto the trailer. Now, it is a 16-ton trailer, and that when it says 16-ton trailer, it is not defining whether the total carrying capacity of the trailer is 16 ton, which includes the weight of the trailer itself. That is the gross laden weight. And if the cargo is itself weighing 30,486 pounds, then the equipment which is loaded onto the trailer is overloaded, which is compromising on both the quality and the safety of transportation. So the specification is not very clear. The exact dimensions of the cargo, the exact weight, and what is the load carrying capacity of the trailer should be, or the equipment should be, for transportation. So if this is not specified, there is very strong likelihood of mishap happening in transit, and the contract the transportation may not be done successfully. Next slide, sir. Now, this slide shows that since the cargo was, the weight on the trailer is overloaded, there is a bulge happening on the chassis of the vehicle, which clearly defines that the trailer is not in a position to carry that load on the load which is to be transported, and it is overloaded, and it can have very serious repercussions. Now, especially in our experience, when you load a special equipment on the trailer, the structural engineers normally will define where is the center of gravity of the product, where are the lashing points, and what are the dimensions. If the dimensions are going outside the standard dimensions of the trailer or they're within the limit, all that if it is defined, then the vendor can take up additional strengthening of the trailer so that the equipment or the chassis is strong enough to safely transport the material. Whereas in this case, the trailer is not suitable for carrying the load which is supposed to be transported, because the specifications in the contract was not clearly defined on that. Next one, sir.
Thank you.
This is just a extension of the picture that how much is the bulge happening. Can you go to the next slide, sir?
Yeah.
And this is an example shown that the vendor has made an attempt to strengthen the chassis to support that load, but the tubing dimensions used are structurally not strong enough or not adequate to withstand this load. So this can result also in the failure. So it is important that whenever we
Sir, sorry to interrupt. You are on mute.
I'm sorry. I'll repeat again. This picture shows that the structural tubing is not adequately strengthened to take that extra load or overloading of the trailer with that equipment, which is special equipment which is transported. And this is likely to be resulting into an accident or compromising on the safety. The standard practice in such cases is that in specialized equipment transportation, the contractor will nominate a third-party surveyor to inspect the strengthening done by the trailer, by the vendor on the trailer, whether it is adequately strong to safely transport the material, which is not clear, and that is what is the missing link we see in our contract terms and in the execution process. Next one. This is an extension to the same, the saying that the strengthening of the flat body trailer is not adequate and not supported to carry that overloaded equipment on the trailer. And this shows the consequence of overloading, because the suspension system in the trailer is not adequate to take that overload, and because of that the tire of the trailer is getting falling up with the trailer body, which will damage the equipment and also result into an accident.
Right. Okay, now let's move to the next point of discussion, that is the third point of discussion. Discuss and arrive at a conclusion as to how best the discrepancies can be rectified. Okay, this is the third phase of our discussion. Let me repeat. Discuss and arrive at a conclusion as to how best the discrepancies can be rectified. So before we move in, is there any questions from the participants? Any suggestions, any clarifications required? Please feel free to ask.
Sir, I have a question here. So, with the trailer case study, sir was explaining. So, how would you convey the things to the contractor when the requirements haven't been met, and how would you professionally clarify that and resolve the issue?
Thank you very much for your question, and it's a very good question. In fact, this point I was supposed to explain as part of the slide. When a contractor is putting down the terms of reference, or when writing is RFQ, RFP for the tender to be floated, firstly, it is important that what we are going to carry, those dimensions and specifications of those products are very well mentioned in that. If it is an odd size product dimension, it's important that length, width, height, and also where the center of gravity of the equipment would be there, it should be defined. Because it is important that when you're transporting, the CG of the trailer or the transporting equipment and the center of gravity of the product should get aligned. Number one. Number two, if the weight factors are defined, the dimensions are defined, we also define what is the wheelbase of the trailer is required, how many axle weights are required. All these technical parameters which will ensure that the equipment is not overloaded, which will ensure that the center of gravity is well aligned. It will also ensure that your clear lashing points are given, how the equipment has to be lashed with the trailer so that when it is transporting, it is stable. These are the few points which are very critical to be specified by the contractor when he is releasing the tender to the vendor to participate in the tender. And apart from that, it will also define how the handling of the equipment has to take place. Do you have to lift the cargo and put it at one place, or can you pull the cargo or push from behind and take it, or could you put it on a railing and then roll it onto the trailer? So all those guidelines have to be defined by the contract owner, because he understands his product well, and he also understands what are the critical locations, which are the sensitive points where the cargo can likely to be damaged. For instance, you're carrying a turbine, the turbine blades, or you're carrying your windmill blades. So there are very specific points which have to be properly secured. So those things have to be defined. So if these points are defined, then it becomes very easy for the contractor to get the right equipment, get the right unloading process, do the right lashing process, and also, if required, he will undertake a route survey to see that the roads have adequate turning radius for the vehicle to move. And by and large, all specialized equipments, the road survey is always done, or it is pre-mandatory to do that. But at certain places, it is important that we have to also take specific permissions from the RTOs en route, whether I can cross with my equipment, heavy equipment on that bridge, if the bridge requires any strengthening, or I may have to divert from that culvert and go underneath the river bed and then cross over. So all these things are to be defined at the time of releasing tender. If I'm sure the whole thing will be done safely. I hope I have been able to answer your question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, Yogesh.
So, gentlemen, this is one sample requirement which has been spelled out. They have spelled out when the delivery is required. So it's important that the route has to be mapped. The average speed it has to be carried has to be mapped. If the cargo is over-dimensional cargo, you can't move by night. It has to have specific locations have to be defined where the night halt will take place. So then only you will be able to decide whether the delivery schedule can be adhered to for the delivery as per the requirement of the tender. Capacity I've already covered, and obviously the type of road, if the survey is done, the inclination on the road, the curvatures will also define the speed part of it. And specification of trailer in terms of platform, it can be flatbed, it can be semi-low bed, it can be low bed trailer. All those things have been defined. So this is a well-defined guideline given for a vendor to safely carry out the transportation.
Okay. I'll move to the next one.
Yeah. All these points are an extension to what I have briefed, that from the technical point of view, right from loading, positioning, lashing, then also the stability of the trailer, the CG of the trailer, the overall load and load stability, all those points have to be properly taken care of, which has been well defined in the contract, in the tender requirement. In the tire type of tires, the size of tires, even that is also defined, which will also define how much of load the axle can carry. These are all extension to those safety norms. You have to have those emergency lights available, and you'll have to also have always have a lead ahead and also a trail behind to see that the cargo is safely escorted. So all those guidelines have been fairly well defined for the contract, for the vendor to properly execute the contract. The warranty part is also defining that the equipments which are used are to be approved by the local transport authority. Delivery, I've already covered in that very clearly the inspection has to take place where the actual delivery will be given, and the unloading process also have to be defined, and how the positioning has to take place at the time of unloading. And many times you have to do site preparation for that. So that should be covered. That is also covered part of the specifications.
Yogesh, I have two questions. One is material modified or augmented. Can you please explain to the participants what it means?
Can you repeat the question again, sir? The
question was the last sentence. Material should not be made modified or augmented.
Yeah, okay. This is a good point. This point is more relevant from the vehicle manufacturer's perspective. It says that if you have an equipment where your length of the trailer is say 30 feet and the cargo to be loaded is say 35 feet. So you will be having an overhang of 5 feet in length. Now, to increase the overhang length, if I extend my chassis of the trailer by taking extra channels and welding it to the main chassis, in that case, the manufacturer says that it has to be, it is not permitted, and if it is done, it should be done under approval. So, at many occasions, there are many equipments which come into our country where our roads, our equipments, we don't have compatible to be carried. In that case, the contractor and the vendor both will apply for specific approvals, and it will define the process, how it will ensure safety, how will it ensure that the whole operation will be carried out smoothly, get the approval. It also would mean sometimes removing the overhanging electrical wires. You know, you are moving and your height is more, and you may have an obstruction coming en route because of electrical wires. Or there may be a situation where you are going under a bridge and the bridge height is less than the height of the equipment. You may have to either have a hydraulic trailer or may have to have a diversion to do that. So all that approvals are required before you go for this any modification done. It means that.
Thank you, Yogesh. I have one more doubt because this sentence is a little ambiguous. Manufacturer's latest current production with additional features outlined herein.
Basically, what happens is that when a new equipment is launched, or any transportation equipment vehicle is launched with new models, all those vehicles have to get approved by the local authorities. Each state, each country has its own authority. And when the vendor is carrying out the operations, he has to select the equipment which should follow the law of land. So it may happen that there is the authority has given a specification which is currently applicable, but the equipment used is not compatible for that specification. In that case, it needs to have an improvement done and an approval taken on that.
So you mean to say that even if the specification given by the buyer, which has been superseded by the authorities, you have to follow what is being given by the authorities. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we have to always follow the law of land.
Right, but who is responsible for the additional cost?
Yes, so that is a commercial discussion which has to take place between the vendor and the contract and the owner. But the law of land cannot be deviated.
Got it. Thank you. Right. These are the probing questions. Shyam, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
Yeah, you want to take on this one? Ask probing questions?
I just had one more follow-up question, which if I could ask Captain Yogesh, is going over the previous example itself, where it was a 16-ton flatbed trailer, one, and the second piece of information that came was the load was 33,000 pounds. So roughly equivalent to again 15 or 16 tons itself. Yeah. So there are two things that that intrigued me, which I thought I'd ask somebody with an experience like Captain Yogesh has, is when one talks of the load carrying capacities or the load itself, what all does one take into account? because we talk of tare weights, we talk of gross weights, we talk of gross vehicle weights, etc., etc. So in this instance, what could probably have gone wrong is one of my questions.
Shyam, good question. I think so. The key derivative for answer to your question is the axle load. Whether you are having a 4-tire axle or a 2-tire axle or a 2-axle, 3-axle, 4-axle, and what is the wheelbase between the axles. So the authorities have already defined that if you are in an 8-tire axle, that means 4 on either side, it has a carrying capacity of 8 tons. And if you have multiple of those 2 or 3 axles or 4 axles, then that much of extra load you can take.
Right.
So that becomes the total gross carrying weight.
Ah, got it.
And then the actual dead weight of the equipment also has to be subtracted to determine what is the actual payload you can carry.
Absolutely. So you actually hit the nail on the head here, Captain Yogesh, by saying that you need to look at the tare weight, and then arrive at what possibly can be loaded so that the axle can withhold the entire weight that it transports over point A to point B.
Correct.
Perfect.
That's right.
Now,
these are all standard defined weight given by the authorities.
Authorities itself.
So we do not have any leverage in that. We just have to decide how many axles, how many tires, and what size of tires.
Right.
And then what is the dead weight? If I'm using a very heavy duty steel, I end up carrying less weight because my dead weight has gone up. If I use an aluminum channel, I've reduced my dead weight of the trailer, so I can increase more payload carrying. So the overall carrying capacity will not change, but payload carrying capacity will change depending on what is the weight of your dead weight of your equipment.
Perfect. Very clear. I hope the participants here are also able to understand the nuances of what Captain Yogesh just spoke. Because this is quite crucial as one goes about taking what we call ODCs or project cargo, or specifically.
Right. Right. I'll put the probing questions.
Yeah. So I think, Professor Matthew, the question that I asked referring to the example itself, has sort of cleared the air on some of these probing questions also, because Captain Yogesh talked about the axles, determining the number of axles, the wheel bases, etc., determining how much capacity can a truck or the payload that it can carry from, if it has to go from one place to the other. And he also spoke about whether two 16-ton axles can they haul a 32,000 pound. I mean, these are things that how does one figure out? Okay, the first one that you talk about here, the second one of two 16-ton axles accommodation on a trailer load has been answered. But if one were to go to the first one, where it said that can two 16-ton axles take a 32,000 pound load, and it defines a speed also. So how does one address this?
Shyam, there are two things. One thing is that yes, two 32-ton axles can take 32 ton load is permissible. The speed is dependent directly on the road conditions, the gradient, and also all the powerhouse which you're using for pulling the trailers.
Okay.
So that will define the speed, and it will also define based on what is the ODC. If there is the ODC consignment, it is already specified the speed will not be more than 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers per hour.
Right. Right.
50 miles per hour is for a normal cargo. It is not for a special cargo.
Not for a special cargo, not for a project cargo at all. Yeah.
Cannot be.
Okay. And if you come to the next one, Captain Yogesh, if one were to build a trailer capable of hauling again the 32,000 pound load.
So there are manufacturers, especially the German manufacturer, and even India also making it. They have modular trailers. That means you have the main trailer of, just say, 4 axle, 6 axle, 2 axle. So there are different types of trailers. So you can combine these trailers longitudinally and also horizontally to increase the capacity and also the dimension.
Okay. So
you have a 6 axle trailer, you have a 4 axle trailer, you have a 2 axle trailer. So you can use 6 plus 4 plus 2, 12 axle trailers at one go, which will increase the capacity. Or you can use only, you have a small cargo, you can only use 4 axle trailer. Or you can use 4 plus 2, 6 axle trailer.
Right.
So that combination will determine how much of capacity, what is the capacity required for transportation, and also the dimension.
Perfect. Got it. So typically, at least I have seen across various, when I travel on road, these huge windmill blades being transported.
Yep.
They are really, really long. Yeah. So that is a combination of a couple of trailers together, or is it a single trailer?
No, it is normally it is a combination of two trailers.
Okay, got that.
Windmills also have, by default, they have very low weight.
Right. They are low in weight, but
it is the length which is a criteria, and the
absolutely. So one talks of volume and weight also. Here, weight is not a criteria, but the volume that it occupies because of its length becomes the determining factor. Excellent.
Shyam, I have one suggestion for the participants.
Yes, sir.
Please don't misunderstand. Whatever we are talking, you may feel that it's too complicated. It's too technical. Okay, we are giving you the technical knowledge because these are all things what you have to understand when you come up with a contract. If you have to prepare a contract, you have to do your own homework. Why we are giving you all this technical information is because you have to be knowledgeable. That's the starting point. Okay, if you have to prepare a contract, how do you prepare a contract? From where do you get the information? So you have to have proper discussion. So what Captain Yogesh and what Shyam is trying to say is trying to give you as much technical information for you to understand so that your basis of knowledge is firm. Have I made it clear to everybody? Any questions so far?
So I'll ask another question of the participants itself here, because I think there are participants from Tata Steel and JSW also, right? Now, steel coils or steel rolls, we spoke about these windmill blades, which are not, they are voluminous, but they don't have much weight. Whereas these steel rolls that are there, they are not voluminous, but they have huge, they weigh a lot. So I have seen that also being transported on flatbed carriers. And one immediately thinks that there is an underutilization of the flatbed carrier that is happening, because it is not, there is maybe only 1 or 2 full rolls that are there on the flatbed carrier. Right? So this actually transposes the answer that Captain Yogesh gave. It flips it on the other way to say, okay, weight matters, and therefore you can't have more weight to occupy on that flatbed trailer. Am I right in my interpretation, Captain Yogesh?
Yeah, you're right, sir. See, there are, like, I'll just take it forward what you're saying. See, you may have a 30-foot trailer, and the 30-foot trailer is only carrying 2 coils.
That's
one
right.
in the front, one in the end, and the whole trailer is vacant. But the weight, each coil weighs about 10 to 15 tons.
Mm. Mm.
So it's a very concentrated load.
Right.
So it is achieving the object. See, that length is required because you need to have that minimum number of axles.
Correct. The load bearing capacity.
If you take a shorter length, how will you put the axles in place?
Absolutely.
But the load carrying capacity of the equipment is determined by the axle load.
Got it. Got it.
So if you have a 32-ton load and you need to have a 3-axle trailer or a 4-axle trailer.
Got it, sir. And finally, one more question that comes to mind is in a country as diverse as ours, where goods get transported from, let's say, Tamil Nadu to, let's say, Odisha, or maybe still further down. So when you arrange for a flatbed trailer or an ODC cargo to move, you spoke earlier of the law of the land. Yeah. The law of the land, is it the same across the states, or one needs to be aware of the different nuances in the laws of the land across the borders that one travels?
Payload carrying capacity is uniform across. It is in the RC book. RC book is valid for the whole country.
Correct.
Okay. The only variation may have, which normally is not applicable in the special cargo, is probably the local, in terms of the logos, in terms of the painting you do onto that covered body vehicles, which is not applicable here. Where you need to take, suppose you are painting a truck completely with a product logo.
Mm-hmm.
So now, but there are certain guidelines. If it is a national permit, whether it is a state permit, how much of what kind of paint should be used. So there they have to follow. They have to take local permissions. But in this case, it is uniform across the board.
Okay. Okay. So having the documentation in place so that they are able to have a safe passage across the borders is of primary importance.
Yeah.
Crucial. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Information gathering. Let's look at information gathering. Okay. Now, this information gathering, this is required for preparing the quotation. Preparing the tender. Okay. Now, like what I just said, if you have to make a proper tender, you have to do your own homework. You got to study. You got to have discussions with the concerned people. So what Captain Yogesh as well as Shyam has been explaining was some of the technicalities involved, so that you are knowledgeable enough before you make a contract or contract specifications. Okay. Now, coming back to the old question, how do you gather information? What is exactly is the product? What do you really want to buy or to make or to manufacture? So information gathering is an exercise which I will give it back to Shyam.
Sorry. Yeah.
Information gathering, Shyam. What do you feel? Where should you start? Where should it end? How do you do your homework?
So basically, when one starts as a let's say a service provider, on understanding first or getting all the data that is required to be in a position to be able to give an appropriate quote or a proposal. That's one. So if there is a little ambiguity of sorts in the explanation of the product to be carried, not being forthwith or coming across clearly, it becomes extremely important that as a contractor or a provider of service, I go and seek out that specific information so that not only am I clear as a service provider, but both the service provider as well as the buyer of the service are on the same page. Both of them now have understood what the need is and what is expected, and therefore what would be quoted subsequently. So it all begins with a very clear, detailed, and crisp document that drills down to the minutest of details what the need is and what is the requirement. What is the deliverable of a service provider? What is it that I'm expecting as a buyer of the service provider? So that becomes the starting point. So that when we spoke of on day one as an RFP would need to be translated and given to the service provider.
Right. Thank you, Shyam. There's an incident which comes to my mind. I've been working, like what I said earlier, I've been working heavily on large projects. In my career, I had faced one very difficult situation. We were handling an ODC, over-dimensional cargo. We were offloading it directly from the ship onto the trailer. Okay, we were given the specification and the trailer, it's a hydraulic trailer, like what Captain Yogesh has already explained. Everything was prepared, and as the material, heavy lift cargo was being downloaded from the ship, we could understand the trailer, what we have provided is not sufficient. It was a hell of an embarrassing moment. So we requested the ship to hold on. Now comes the issue. Who did wrong? Who is to be blamed? So when we analyzed it, the material which is the cargo which is coming down, specification is not what we had. The specification, what was given to us was called the engineering specification. Okay, based on the engineering specification, we made the trailer, but when it was being shipped, the specification changed. Okay, so we did not have the shipping specification. So the shipping specification shows where exactly the skids are, where is the center of gravity, the whole spectrum changes. So we had to take back the trailer, okay, and then bring it on the next day with the actual trailer according to the shipping specification. So in normal case, we would have been penalized very heavily for delaying the ship. Why I said this example is to show how important specifications are. We have been talking about specifications. So it's very important that you got to get the right specification. So all the examples what Captain Yogesh Kundra has been talking has been because of the incorrect specifications given in the in the contract. Okay. Now let's try to see the tips for improving contract management, administration, and compliance. What are the tips? Okay. Avoiding using ambiguous terms. We have already talked about it. You've seen quite a number of examples. Okay, Captain Yogesh Kundra has explained to you very well the details, the technical implications of it. All this has been explained to you. Okay. Now, identifying the risk at a planning stage. Okay. Now, what do you understand identifying the risk at a planning stage? Okay. Like the example, what I just narrated has happened because of the risk. Okay. The specifications which was given to us as the transporter is the engineering specification, not the shipping specification. See, something has gone wrong in the planning stage, in the execution of it. So it's essential that risk factors have to be covered and it has to be planned, how the operation is going to be carried out from till the end. Okay, it has to be all planned and designed. Now meet the vendor community. Okay, now what exactly is meet the vendor community? Okay, now the example which comes to my mind is which is being carried out reverently before the COVID situation in one of the largest facilities called the LPG facility. It's called the Ras Gas in Qatar. Okay, they are the largest producers of LNG. Okay, they reverently invite all their vendors to come in to Qatar every year, and they have exhibitions, there are open discussions. Okay, there are so many activities every year they plan along with the vendor. So this brings the vendors close to the buyer. Okay, in addition to that, okay, the information is passed on. What are the new technical specifications which are coming in? What are the new products? So there is a free exchange of information for the benefit of everybody. So it's better to have the vendor community along with you. Right, establish contract management team early. Okay, it's essential that, okay, before we start the contract, the contract team has to be established. We have already seen what are the criteria required in a management team. Okay, there has to be open communication. There has to be people who are like-minded people. They should have enough experience as well as technical knowledge, project management experience. All these are vital. Okay, and everybody should feel that, okay, we do have the deliverables. Okay, like what we have seen yesterday. Okay, and plus we are responsible for the performance of the contract. Then maintain open mind when gathering information. Okay. Now this is something which we talked about it in the tender itself. Okay. In the tender principles itself, we talked about it. Okay. You have to have an open mind, no hidden agenda, no hidden benefits to any nationality or any country. Okay. You got to understand. Okay. This is a project. It's a turnkey project which has to be carried out in a proper fashion. So the contract has to be entered with an open mind and open discussions. So whatever things have to be ironed out, it has to be ironed out in the pre-tender meeting itself. You're free to ask questions and gather information or clarifications. Right. Seek legal counsel input. Okay, right. Legal counsel input is very much required. Like I think I did mention in the beginning as well. When a contract is made, okay, normally it is a legal counsel who are making the contract. They would look at some old contract and then they try to amend it. Okay, but I'm a firm believer, being an operator all my life, I'm a firm believer that the contribution from an operator or a project manager are more useful. They should work along with the legal counsel to give their application. Okay, how in actual fact, how things can be carried out. So it's essential along with the legal. Okay, you got to incorporate the application okay, which is vital. There's no point of having an academic, academically making up a contract. It has to be practical. It has to you have to evaluate the practicality of the contract. Okay, then lastly, when gathering compliance issues, use direct questions from solicitation or contract to strengthen the position. Okay, just like what Shyam was asking, probing questions. Okay, if you don't know, okay, you're getting into a, a new project. Let's say it's a greenfield project, which has not been carried out by anywhere. So you've got to study a lot. You've got to do your homework. Okay, understand it's a greenfield project. Have more discussions with people who are knowledgeable, probably not in this country or abroad. Get it done. Ask probing questions. So go visit certain sites wherein they're already implemented. Have discussions with the project managers. So, so what I'm trying to say is that you got to do your homework. Okay. If you gather all the right information, you can come up with a project, a quotation. You can come up with a project RFP to start with. Okay, like what we mentioned on the first day, you can come up with an RFP which is more sensible and realistic. Okay, you are incorporating in the RFP everything what you have gathered from your information. Okay, and that is exactly what you want. Okay, so it's essential that you got to do your homework so that your solicitation can be professionally and it can be fruitful as well and error-free more than anything else. Right. So I've just completed the second part. So now it's open to questions. We got a couple of minutes to go. Now, okay. Open question to the participants. How was this session? Was it useful, informative, boring, too many technical details? Speak up, please.
Sir, actually, this session was very informative and we try to know the nuances of the specifications and how critical is it to make purchase successful and how do you ship it and all those requirements fundamental for any organization to follow and to adhere to it in order to avoid any consequences in the future. So that was a very pleasant session and we got to know few insights and many more things to learn.
Good. Thank you so much. Yes, you have hit the nail like what Shyam always says. Okay, you have hit the nail. By learning the intricacies of the project, you are in a better position to come up with a proper RFP to start with. Okay, if you have a proper RFP and you get proper quotations from vendors, then you can come up with a proper contract. Okay, it's a process. If the process has to be carried out diligently and effectively, then you have a better product. Okay, the end product is a contract. Shyam, you want to add something?
You I do not want to say that you hit the nail, Professor Matthew, but you have succinctly summarized because like they say, the devil is in the details. So if you are able to get through all the details as quickly as possible, you would not be going around, or one would not be going around in circles to figure out how to do a certain activity. So planning is of paramount importance. And within planning, if you're able to get all the details and account for them, that would stand anybody in really good stead as they move along to do the put up a document which is a quotation for a RFP that comes your way from the buyer. So it is really crucial that so in the process of detailing and planning, there would be definitely multiple iterations because not everything is clear on it's very, very difficult to have everything with absolute clarity, or like we say, crystal clear on the first go. There could be 1 or 2 or 3 iterations, but the sooner this gets out of the way, the faster one is able to get across onto the RFP, give a quote, get a contractual order, and go on to work, so that there is nothing that is left to chance. The probability of an error diminishes remarkably then.
Thank you, Shyam. Nitish, we have not heard you today. Would you like to give your feedback?
Professor Matthews, in fact, that
louder.
That was Nitish only who was speaking.
Is it? Okay,
yes.
Right.
Yes, sir, it was me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, Nimisha, are you there today?
He appears online, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Nimisha. So how do you, so far, today has been the 3rd day. How I believe you were not able to attend the session yesterday due to technical issues, right?
Yes, sir. I wasn't able to attend yesterday.
We do apologize. Okay, we do apologize. So how far have you found the 3 days? Okay, I mean, in your case, it's only 2 days. How do you find the course?
It's been very informative, sir. Yeah, it's been really good.
Oh, no. Little more louder, Nimisha. Can't hear you.
I said it's been really informative, sir. It's been really good so far.
Are you learning something new?
Yes, sir, definitely. I'm learning something new.
Good. Right. Okay. Any other comments from the participants? Yogesh, you want to add up anything? Yogesh, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am there very much.
Please.
No, it has been a pleasure to share your experience and thoughts. I think so Shyam has really brought very valid points. So I would say that the most important part of ensuring successful execution of contract, whether it is transportation, warehousing, or erection, or any other contract, is how accurately we are able to describe the scope of work, and we are able to describe specific deliverables for each vendor or stakeholder, and how we are able to do the golden handshake between the stakeholders, so that the execution is carried out smoothly. And those things are also mentioned in our contract document. Those defining those specifications and then ensuring that every stakeholder is aware of that. You may have an excellent contract document shared, but it is not known to the people on the ground. It can again create a huge amount of disconnect in the execution part of it. We've had a whole lot of good success contract execution and also bad contract execution, and describing the scope of work, then like rightly said, having those meetings with each stakeholder and ensuring that each one is aware of his role to be played and how the seamless handover takes place between the two operations within the team and external to the team is very important. So these are a few thoughts which come to my mind, which are probably linked in today's session. Of any specific query anyone has got, any question, will be a pleasure to answer that.
These are two very experienced people here. Please utilize them. Any more questions from participants? Dr. Saroj Kaul, are you there? Can you hear me, please? I can see you as a participant. Are you there? Are you there, madam? Okay, even if madam is not there, now I would like to say that she is, yesterday I was not able to understand who the person was when she asked me a question. But my curiosity went further down. I asked Professor Pratap, who is Saroj Kaul? Now, I would like to say she's one of the most experienced and the most oldest academic person in the field of logistics in the industry. Okay, she's a professor as well as the vice dean in general in Jindal University in Noida, and we are really honored that she is participating in our session, and I would really welcome her, and I hope she'll be able to attend the session tomorrow. And I would like to say, lastly, I had the privilege of associating with her 10 years back, to be more precise, in 2011, 2012, when I communicated with her to introduce the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in UK so that the courses could be brought to India. Okay, so we had a communication as long as 10 years back. So I wanted to put it on record. So I hope we'll have an opportunity to talk to her tomorrow when she comes for the session. Right. Any more questions from anyone else? Tata Steel has been very quiet. Okay. If there are
Good
no...
afternoon, sir. My voice is audible.
Yeah, please. We are waiting here for
Sir,
you.
I am Professor Pratap, sir.
Right, good to hear you. How do you feel today?
Yeah, fine, sir. Saroj madam has informed that today she is in meeting.
Okay.
That's why she could not continue for all the full time today's session.
Please do convey our regards to her, and we are delighted that she is attending this session. I hope she will be able to attend tomorrow.
Yes, sir. From Tata Steel, I want to say that today from Tata Steel we are having with us Devendra Kumar Gupta and Jiban Jyoti Sahu. Then Neha Singh was there, but she is not now present. But today we have with us Devendra Kumar Gupta, and Devendra Gupta is there, sir.
Right.
Devendra sir, there. Devendra sir.
Yeah, I am there.
Yes.
Devendra, if you can just give us your feedback. That will be very much
Actually,
appreciated.
it is very, of course, sir, it was nice. But the thing was a little bit of communication gap, which should have been matlab, aligned before that. So that more the explanation and everything was good. But I was most concerned about the communication gap between us and the team who was taking this session. It's not about you, sir. Very good.
You know, since Professor Pratap is here, can he be more explicit? Was it yesterday the problem with the link? Is that what you are referring to?
Personal communication. I mean to say, sir, as they are all
Personal
busy in their
miscommunication.
Yeah.
We actually
Yes,
also
yes,
have
yes.
some plans and meetings, so we need to schedule accordingly. That was a difficult task from our side. And
Okay,
apart from that, everything was good.
Okay, you mean the scheduling the course?
Right, sir. Very true.
Okay. Yeah, because like what I said yesterday about Jamshedpur, yes, we look so much because you have sent, there are 7 people from Tata Steel itself. So we just want to give you the best. We want you to go back with the best memories and what you have learned. Yogesh, you want to add something?
If I can ask you one basic feedback, how relevant do you find this topic on contract administration is today to our professional world in our day-to-day working? And whatever attempt we have made, Professor Matthews has been so experienced and with a lot of knowledge, and we are making our efforts to see that the academic our experience is combined together and shared with you. This structure, is it meeting its objective, or you feel that it needs further, I would say, improvements in that?
No, it's very much relevant to us. Day-to-day activity, we are dealing with that. Whatever sir has told us, we have faced a problem and we have tried to resolve it so that both vendor and are in win-win position. So
Okay.
all the things which were taught to us right now, today's session I am talking about, it was very well relevant to our topics and to a day-to-day supply chain man.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, definitely, sir.
See, we would really welcome if you have any specific case study where you had problems, you can let us know. If you can send it to us well in advance, okay, through Professor Patti, we will go through the case and then we will be able to discuss it during our session as well. Can you do that?
On day-to-day, the difficult task for us was for transportation contract and the civil contract.
Right.
Because right now you are aware the rates are fluctuating and we need to implement a PVC clause, price variation clause. So how to manage that? Vendors are denying after accepting the terms and conditions and the rates. So that was a challenging to us. So how to get it far forward so that our user department or the department which required the services should not get their job affected.
Okay, I have a question.
2-3 things where the contract where we got stuck, the major contract.
Right. Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
in this contract with the vendor, what you just narrated, is there an escape clause or a hardship clause mentioned?
No, sir, we haven't mentioned escape clause and hardship clause. We have only exit clause we have mentioned there. Yeah. And right now we are facing that we need to mention the PBC clause also. Because the manpower hiring rate are going high, cement or some, right now the scarcity of sand is there. The vendors are denying to do the job. They are not saying directly, but they are delaying in the process. That the rate comes down, we will look after that. So these are the things which we are right now we are facing. For the transport contract, there is we have not taken account of that behavior of the drivers and how they treat with our user department. That also is coming to us. Diesel price are fluctuating day by day. right now to stability, but initially it was fluctuating very much. So vendors were denying to do the job because we have fixed that for the 3 years contract.
Right.
So we need to work on that. So right now some things have been worked, but it's not a systematic process. So while
is there any
learning to your, yeah.
No escalation clause?
Devendraji, just for my information, are your transportation contracts on annual basis or half-yearly or quarterly basis?
Annual basis. And moreover, this time we have based for 3 years.
Oh, 3 years, my goodness.
Yeah. So
is there any escalation clause in it?
Escalation clause we were not exactly escalation clause. We have mentioned right now PBC clause, which is related to the salary of the driver, hiring, manpower cost, which wages department gives, and the diesel price. These are the two variables which we have taken into account.
Right.
But after coming across the problem which we have faced, initially we have not taken this into the account.
Okay, Yogesh, you want to add anything?
No, I myself have been a service provider to Tata Steel, so I am aware of the whole, partly aware of the whole situation. I think so in today's context, especially Tata Steel, where there is more outbound movement happening and less inbound coming for long distances. Short distance, okay. There, everything is linked on the return loads. So when the return loads are not there, the vehicles don't come in, and then there is a gap in demand and supply of the vehicles. So one way to capture is that the contract can be for 3 years period. Well, this is what we have recommended in some cases where I was a consultant also. But the rate fixation can be on a quarterly basis or 6 monthly basis, because the seasonal impact has brings in the a huge amount of impact on the freight. Sometimes we'll find that the transporters will have huge margins on specific period, and in some seasons they will be making a loss. So when they make a loss, they pull their thing to put the vehicles, and then the company has a problem. So this is something which is a very dynamic situation, because the sourcing is done on a daily basis, procurement. And when you're on a daily basis procurement happening, then it is always a gap of demand and supply. So this challenge is very genuine challenge, and it needs to be tackled with more of data and analytics. Maybe now Tata Steel has a huge data in terms of the loads going last so many years to each location, and what has been the turnaround of vehicles happening, how many vehicles are coming back at the same time, how many new vehicles are coming. So those analytics will help us to really forecast in terms of the duration of contract, in terms of pricing, the value of the contract, the duration can be 3 years, but the commercial terms can have a deviation between a defined bandwidth on a season to season basis. This is what I can extemporally give inputs, but they need to be done proper study on that.
How much goes by rails?
70% goes by rail, I think so.
70% goes by rail.
I think so. Devendraji, please correct me.
Definitely, we are using a rail transportation more often. But what I am talking about the CSRB, where our road transport is more.
Yeah.
You
have a very genuine point, Devendraji, and it needs to be addressed with multiple options. So one has to really go off the ground and do a lot of data analysis on that. Now, there's not a simple solution, quick fix solution for this issue or the challenge.
Right. That's why we are working on it to come best solution.
We have had similar experiences like, we've been involved in logistics of coal, cement, bulk commodity, steel. We have done a lot of transportation for Jindal Steel from Raipur and Raigarh. Same issues are there. Absolutely same issues.
Okay.
Right. Okay, any other questions? If there are no other questions, can we close the session for the day? Madam?
Sir,
Yeah, please.
sir, unfortunately, I haven't been added to the WhatsApp group. Could the management of ASBM confirm with that?
Okay, madam, can you please do that? Nitish is the one who was talking from Jain University.
Yes, sir. Already the WhatsApp group is there. I'll share the link with all the participants. I'll share the link so that you can join the group.
Okay, sure.
Right. Madam, you want to take over?
So no more questions. So you can wind up
Okay,
with
have
yourself.
you received the PDF for the last 2 days, please?
Pardon me, sir?
No, I'm asking the students whether they have received the PDF for the first 2 days. The presentation was sent by PDF, whether they have received or not. Hello, can
Yes, sir.
someone from
Yes,
the
sir. It has been
participants,
sent.
Nitish, did you receive?
Yes, sir, we got it. I got it. Ram Mohan Namile from Hyderabad. I got it on my email yesterday's and day before yesterday's, sir.
Okay.
Similarly, today's also we can
Very
send, sir.
good. Okay, you will get
As
it.
Kavi
Yeah,
Guji.
today also I'll be sending. No.
Yeah,
I'll be
every
just
day.
after just now.
I mean, we would like to give it to you on every day at the end of the session, so that we are up to
Yes,
date. And in addition, you will have more reading materials also will be given to you.
Yeah, that link also, sir, I'm sharing. Sir, I have already shared for the last 2 days. That web link also I've shared, sir.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, madam. So over to you.
Thank. Okay, thank you all. Also, I think we should wind up for today.
Right.
Again, on tomorrow on the same time. I'll be
Right.
sure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all. Nice evening.
To everyone, this is Trilochan of Gati Intellect. I'd just like to add a closing line. Okay.
Sure.
Dr. Rutupada, today
Yes,
we'll be
sir.
receiving a folder link because Professor, what he's done is he's sent some reference material. There's some reference documents for the participants. So instead of file link, we will go with a folder link. So we have created a ASBM folder on the cloud, and under that folder, day-wise folders have been created. So as and when, so as and when they want to, kind of look around, they can look around, and within that day folder, we have a reference referees folder referring to the knowledge articles. So there are I think about 3 or 4 documents in there. So today we'll be sending you the folder link.
Okay, so once I'll get it, sir, I'll forward
folder
it.
link. Yes, ma'am. And this folder link will remain the same for the entire session till Saturday.
7th, yeah, till 7th.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you, Sunday midnight we will close access to the to that folder.
Yes, sir. I'll also mention in the mail, sir, detail. I'll mention in detail also.
Jolly good. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can take a leave now, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.